Hello, everyone, and welcome to the June 20th Leveling Up. I'm Sarithkin from Montier, and my guest tonight is my lovely sister, Achaxe, also from Montier, and she's going to teach us all her process for applique, and she's pretty fucking good at it. Um, as you guys have probably all seen from the stuff in the background while she does her interviews. So, welcome. Thank you for agreeing to do this. And I'll just kind of let you take it.
Okay, thanks for having me. I posted a link to the handout for this class in the event on the sisters page and also on my Facebook profile. So feel free to check that out. It has been a really long time since I've taught this class, so I'm just going to kind of go through my process. I'm going to assume that most of you know that applique is basically putting one piece of fabric on another and sewing it down. These triangles on my sleeve are appliques. And the method that I use is I use Wonder Under, which is a fusible kind of tracing paper. And you can find it in the store either in these boxes or with the fusible webbing on these things.
So can I ask you,
yes.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
So
please.
Wonder Under comes in like light, medium, heavy, and super heavy. Do you use different weights for different things, or which one do you recommend?
I try to keep with, this happens to be heavy duty. And this is actually Wonder Under. The other one that I use is Heat and Bond, which is easier to find in the stores now. I try to use the lightest possible. If I'm using like a really thick wool on wool, like for our banners, then I will use a heavier duty, just because it's a lot more fabric to stick together. But yeah, I usually go for as light as possible. And the reason why, especially if you're using a machine, the adhesive can kind of gum up your machine needle. And so the less adhesive you're dealing with, I'm going to assume that everybody is going to sew theirs down and not just expect the Wonder Under to hold your fabric on. And so you really just need to hold it in place while you're sewing it down. It's been my experience, even through multiple washes, that it continues to hold everything in place once it's been sewn down. So you don't get that like middle of your applique lifting and looking poofy, which is what you get when you don't use some sort of glue to tack your applique down. So this is basically a tracing paper with an adhesive on the back. So you probably can't really see that, but there's one side that's kind of bumpy because it's got the adhesive, and then there's one side that's smooth. And you can see I started to do a little tracing. And I just have a light table. My light table is an old X-ray viewing thing, so it's enormous. I know that Rifkin has a really cool Bluetooth one.
It's an LED.
LED one. Yeah. Some newfangled gadget.
Yeah, I probably should have brought it with me, but you can buy them on Amazon and they're super thin, which I kind of like because I can just actually, if I'm not appliquing, if I'm embroidering, I can put my design on the light table and then put it into, or then put the fabric over it, or put it into my tunic that I'm gonna, and then I can draw right on it.
So. And mine, on the other hand,
yeah,
that's the side of my machine. It's like a hand width wide. It's like a big honkin' monster. So, oh, now my camera's angry.
Angry camera.
Anyway, I am not a person that draws very well, so most of my designs are something that I have traced. I'll photocopy out of a book and I'll use a photocopier to blow it up. I have all of these weird little scraps of paper that I've got designs and notes sketched on. That's kind of how my design process works in my brain. I happen to use Mark's lion a lot, and so I have it drawn on a piece of, this is plastic, so that it won't get lost or shredded like a piece of paper like this will. This is the chicken design that I've got on oh my goodness, that I've got on this coat.
Oh, very cool.
And so what I do when I trace, oh, that's not the same design. Well, yeah,
It's the design on that tunic that you gave to Miranda, right?
Yeah, but I think this is the same one. It's just I've gone ahead and traced it on stacked on top of each other. So I trace one and then I trace the next one kind of like this. So it's super simple. Oh, my battery says my computer says it's dying. Hold on just a sec. Sorry, folks.
It's not a big deal. So really, if you don't know how to draw a light table, or even if you do know how to draw, a light table is really your friend, and a copy machine that you can enlarge and reduce helps a lot too, because you can get the exact size that you want. I have applique patterns of the same thing in like 50,000 different sizes. So yeah, sorry, I was filling time.
No, that's perfect. You did great. I have my computer in an extension cord and I failed to plug the extension cord in. So that is remedying now.
Susanna is asking if the Wonder Under is thin enough that you can trace right onto it from the light table.
Yeah. You mean, well, yeah, that's what, so
yeah,
this is a piece of paper and I have to, and this is the Wonder Under. And I've already partially got the design on there, so I'm trying to line it up. I don't know if you can see that very well.
Do you ever tape it down after you line it up? Like,
I don't, because, but that's a really good idea. I don't because when I do these chained designs, I need to move the Wonder Under every time I go to a new design. And so there's the Wonder Under, and now I'm going to move.
Okay, cool.
And kind of line it up. So no, I do things not in the fastest way possible. I am very sure that a lot of you have those Cricut or Cricut machines, and that those machines will do this step for you. They will do this step and the cutting out the design step for you. I am never going to own one of those machines, just very unlikely. So, and I really enjoy the process, the way that I do it. It's very meditative for me. I don't really have to think. I'm just tracing design. So that gives you 2 motifs down. I would continue that. I'm going to do this motif down the front of a coat. And so I would continue that chained up like this. And I've gone ahead and done 4 of them and ironed them onto some fabric. So what you would do.
I'm going to interrupt you for a second because we had a whole bunch of people join us after the first 5 minutes, and they want to know what exactly is Wonder Under for the uneducated.
It is, it's a fusible webbing that's attached to a tracing paper. So you can trace your design. This is what it comes in a box like this, or it'll be in the fabric store with your other fusible webbings on these things.
You can buy it on Amazon.
Or you can buy it on Amazon. We are down to like one fabric store in our neighborhood from like 5, so I try to go in as much as possible. So it's a paper-backed fusible webbing. And it basically gives you a design once you trace it out.
So as you're cutting, Countess Cortland would like to know, in period, did they use a Wonder Under kind of substance or something sticky, or?
Probably a fish glue or a gum arabic or something. Yeah, I think they must have. I have not deep dived into that research. But I know that there's some beautiful applique, like leather applique and Elizabethan stuff. There's a ton of Scythian appliques, and they're so tight. I mean, the stitching is all really small, but a lot of it's leather on leather. And, you know, it's adhesed. So I think that they probably used some glue. I haven't seen anybody take it apart and analyze it, so I don't know. So you basically take this, and it's got that one rough side and one smooth side, and you iron it on your fabric.
So,
and yep.
Can we talk about choosing fabric for applique?
Yeah.
Or is that something you were going to cover later?
I'll cover that later. I just want to kind of go through the process first. Okay. Well, let's go ahead. We'll talk about fabric. So when our grandmother passed away, she left me a lot of her 1960s ultra suede skirts and dresses. Here's a skirt. It still smells like her, which is weird. And so I have used that a lot to get my more intricate designs. You can still buy it, but you can see how detailed you can get, and it doesn't fray. It's a synthetic leather substitute, basically, but it's easier to sew through than leather is, and it's also machine washable. This is a tunic that I made for my husband that's a heavy linen. And that's how the ultra suede washes and then irons again. And this is, can you see the stitches?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, the stitches are hard to see, but
they're super, super small stitches. And then this is chain stitch embroidery around the edge of it in green and in pink. So it's this tunic, I think, is maybe 15 years old, and he wears it all the time. It's one of like 3 or 4 tunics that he has that he wears all the time. So it's super durable, and he would not have been able to wash. If that had been leather, it wouldn't be washable. So that's why I use that. You can totally use leather if you want, but this is a kind of an upcycling free resource for me, and I use the heck out of it. So, and I love it. So you can also do wool on wool. That's the bird part is the same color wool on orange, so that I could have a more solid background for all of the embroidery. You can do, this is duck cotton on duck cotton. And it's pants and a fighting tunic. These are the knee markings because we have to do that in our kingdom. So when you're choosing your fabrics, you want to make sure that you have fabrics that are of the same weight. You don't want to put a really heavy applique on a light fabric. And you don't want to put a light applique on a heavy fabric. You want them to not fight each other. You want them to kind of blend in as one fabric smoothly. So that's kind of the big consideration for me. I've done a lot of machine sewn linen on linen, like heraldic codardy dresses. Not for me, for other people. I've done machine sewn wool on wool banners and champions cloaks for baronies. So yeah, and the fighting pants are cotton duck. So you can use anything you want. I don't like to work with silk. So our family is very messy and we mess that stuff up. So I just don't. But you can certainly do that. It's a little bit different as far as the edges unraveling if you're hand finishing it. So that's something you'll have to research a little bit on your own because it's not my jam.
Yeah, when I applique with silk, I tend to machine it down and then cover it up with hand sewing over the machine. That way it lasts longer.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, one of the things that you want to think about when you're tracing your design is that this is going to get glued down onto the fabric and then it's going to get flipped. So if you want, say, a sable lion facing left, you want to trace it facing right. And that always confuses me. I don't know if I'm a little dyslexic or what, but I always end up making lions facing the wrong way when I do kingdom banners. So that's super fun. So anyway, the cutting part is
wait, did you talk about how you got it to stick on there?
I ironed it down.
Okay.
And I'm not going to show that because it's camera logistics. It's just not happening. But you just use your iron on the setting that the lightest setting that the fabric can take. And I like to put a pressing cloth under the project and over the project to keep, just in case as you're ironing it down, it curls up. You don't want to get the glue on your ironing board or your iron because that's no fun.
That's a good tip.
Yeah, it's a mess to clean up. So I just have a bed sheet permanently tied over my iron pad, and if I get glue on it, then I'll switch it out. And then I usually just have like a scrap of linen or something for to use as my pressing cloth. So when I do cutting, I like these little biskers. These are a curved blade. They have, I'm going to put two of them together so you can.
So pull it back towards you. Yeah, there you go.
So they've got a slightly curved blade, which makes going around these edges really easy. And you can see I'm not just going along and chopping like this and leaving zigzags. I cut and then I moved the cross of the scissor right up against where I last cut. And I just kind of automatically do that so that I get a really clean.
You can totally see it.
Okay. Sorry, I've never cut in front of the camera before. And
the little sharp scissors are super important, right?
they are for me. I use a different pair. I have these because they have super sharp tips for when I go to the inside. And I just use it to stab and do the first cut. And then I come in with these. And actually, those are not as sharp as these, so I'm going to go ahead and use these. The curved blades, because there's so many curves in the Scythian animal style designs that I do, they really help going around the curves and help to keep the cut really clean. I'm going to put this against a dark background so you can see. So you can see, like, that's a bad cut. There's,
Yeah.
it's not smooth. But these cuts are good cuts. So this is kind of the most important part of my process. And again, if y'all have cry cuts, this is all moot because you can just make your machine do it for you.
Yeah, if one of you guys has a cry cut and you do applique on it, I would love to have you on to teach that, because I have tried to use my cry cut and I just cannot get it to make a good cut on fabric. So if you have tips and tricks, share them with us.
So anyway, you get that all cut out. And this is just not cutting very well. I don't want to make you guys watch me cut for hours. That's kind of boring, I think.
My husband loves it when I cut on the couch.
Is he watching the funny faces that you make when you cut?
Well, and then all the little pieces of everything all over.
Everywhere. Yeah, my husband doesn't like that. He thinks it's annoying. But then he gets to wear cool stuff and then it's not so annoying. So this just kind of feeds itself around the curve because of these curved edge scissors. Super awesome.
So I think Duchess Cortland is inadvertently volunteering herself to do a cry cut one.
Yay! I was hoping that she would. I didn't want to volunteer her to do it.
Well,
but I know
she hasn't actually offered, but I'm putting her on the spot.
I know that she's been working on that, and I think that's really cool. And I think anything that can save, people time is an awesome thing. It's an awesome tool to use. This, I think you could still use the Wonder Under with the cry cut. So you can see.
Well, you could always iron Wonder Under on after the cry cut cuts it too.
Yeah, but then you still have to cut it out again.
Yeah, I guess
which
so.
is kind of lame. Anyway, so that's how you get the design. I don't have this design cut out, but I have other designs cut out so you can see. Once you get it cut out, you actually have to peel the paper off. And then it leaves you with that kind of adhesive, that rough adhesive on the back. And then you have your design. And if you want to bling up, like put some little nail heads, this is the time to do it. These are, here's another little dirty secret. These are legit, what is it called, Misty?
Tacks? What are they?
No. they're little nail heads with little prongs on the back. They're bedazzle.
Oh, okay.
They're actually a package of bedazzled nail heads, and I do have a bedazzler. It's a generic one called Gem Magic, but that helps me put these on. So they're on the lion head. They're the eyes.
Duchess Karen says they're Brads.
They're not Brads though. When you look for them online, they're called nail heads, and they're pronged and not pronged. So you can get them that are glue on, and those are not the ones that you want. You want the ones with the prongs that you stick through the fabric, and then you fold over the edges, and they look like.
So I would have never thought to put them on before I put the applique on the fabric. Do you do that because the prongs are short?
The prongs are a couple of reasons. The prongs can be short and they won't go, especially this is going on wool or went on wool. These are my scraps left over that I have to find something to do with them. Measure your design first, kids, because otherwise you do a lot of extra work for nothing. And the other thing is they can come up after, like they can get caught on something and come up, and these are sharp, and it just gives an extra layer of protection between possible sharpness in your skin.
Very cool.
And I like to think maybe the adhesive helps hold them in place too, but I don't know. I might be totally wrong on that. So I didn't really talk about looking at your design and figuring out where you're going to place stuff. I map it all out beforehand. When I'm doing like fighting pants, I put the appliques on before I sew the pants together, because you can't do the kind of machine applique on your machine in a tube like that. It just doesn't work. So you just want to plan your designs out, lay them all out before you iron any of them down. I've learned this the hard way. And sometimes you can lift this off after you've ironed it down. Most of the times you really can't. So once you iron it down, it's there. And so that brings me to, are there any more questions before I go to the next?
Somebody wanted to know if there was a difference between Wonder Under and Heat and Bond, and I just think they're different companies, right?
They're different brands. It's the same product. It's fusible webbing on tracing paper that allows you to make a piece of fabric fusible. Yeah. So, and I don't have a preference. My preference is the one that I can find in the store. They're pretty interchangeable for me. So once I go ahead.
You put the appliques on before you sew the garment together and also sew them? I mean, I can see already like some of them you're working on and the garments put together.
Right. The pants are the only ones that I don't put the garment together first. But the way that I did this set of pants is I laid out my husband's old pants, and so that I could get the knee square location correct. But yeah, I usually, for example, where is it? I'm working on a new linen coat for my husband, and it is all put together. The edging's all done. The seams are all hand finished, and it's ready for some shiny. And so these guys are gonna go on there with yellow couched around it. So as I sew these down, I'm just going to catch that yellow on the edge, which will bring in that trim.
Okay, so when you're
Yeah.
sewing it down, do you sew it down with a blanket stitch first and then do the couching, or you do the couching while you're doing the blanket stitch?
I rarely use blanket stitch.
Okay, so tell me about that.
Okay, so what I do is I just do a basic, what's it called? My mind is
Whip stitch?
dropping. Just a basic whip stitch, but I make sure, I'm just trying to hide the knot here. I make sure to go straight down.
Mm-hmm. And
And
you
do
go
my
into the ultra suede and up through the wool?
I'm up through the ultra suede, down through the wool.
Oh, okay.
So can you?
Yeah, I can see that.
So up through the ultra suede, straight down through the wool. And I probably should have used a contrasting color so that you could see, because you can't really see this. I do blanket stitch sometimes, like if I'm doing, if I'm working with kind of a ravelly wool. But what I'll do is, you know what, I'm gonna grab another piece so that you can see the stitches. So here you can see these stitches are a little bigger, but you can see it's just a whip stitch with all the traveling underneath.
Mm-hmm.
And then I go in and I edge it. This is with a running stitch. And that gives that edge support if you need it. The ultra suede doesn't really need edge support. Let me find some where the motif. So here the motif is all sewn down. You can't really tell until you turn it over.
Mm-hmm.
Can you see those stitches?
Yeah, they're very tiny.
Yeah. So you don't have to stitch that tiny. I just and have gotten a little obsessive about tiny stitches. And then same thing with this. This was just whip stitch down. And then it's got a running stitch, a chain stitch, and a running stitch on the edge. So it completely hides that edge. You can't even really tell that it's an applique piece that's got hair all over it. And then same with this. This one is I'm waiting for the camera to focus.
It's having a hard time.
Yeah. Anyway, it's just really small stitches that the camera is not wanting to. Maybe the phone camera will. Yeah, that's really lame, me holding that up to the phone camera. So, and then you can do blanket stitch. That's what that looks like. When I do blanket stitch, I can tell that my husband did some of this on the lion, and the stitching is not
up to your standards.
Well, it's not well, yeah, but I don't want to be shitty. But it's not locked down. When I do blanket stitch, let me see. A lot of people come up through the stitch and then go back down. And so that leg of the stitch can move around. I'm talking about this part here can move around. I come up through the fabric and then I come up again through the stitch, and it kind of makes a little loop around the stitch, and I pull it tight and it locks it in place so that it won't move around. Do you want me to get some wool and show that, or should we just move on?
I think people would be interested in that. Somebody else was saying that they haven't seen a period example of blanket stitch. Like they've seen buttonhole, but not blanket stitch. And anybody has a period example blanket stitch. Do you have one?
Honestly, I'm not sure.
Okay.
I don't know. Offhand, I don't, which is probably why I don't do it very often. I don't know what I did with that wool thread, but I have a lot on my feet, so I just don't do it. I also don't like how it interferes with the design a lot of the time. Sometimes it's a really great design element, and I like to use it. Sometimes I want that just really smooth cut edge. I'm going to use a needle that's probably a little too big because I'm a little blind and I don't want to try to. Oh, cool. My hands are super shaky. This is going to be fun. So I'm just grabbing some scrap wool here. And I like to hide my knots in between. So normally this would be ironed down and held in place really well for me. So see if I can do this. So the first stitch is just sort of a loop. And then the second stitch, you come up through the fabric, and then it leaves this loop here, which is what kind of supports that edge and keeps it from fraying. And you come up through that loop again. And you can see, well, you can't really see it, but it forms a little loop, and that's locked in place. That is not gonna, a lot of times you see people blanket stitch, and instead of these being like little perpendicular, woo! Sorry. Yeah, rock and roll, right? Instead of being little perpendicular lines like this,
Yeah.
they end up pointing all kinds of directions. And so if you lock it, so what a lot of people do is they come up, show this extra thread, and then they go back down.
Yeah.
That doesn't lock it. So that, see how that can move around?
Yeah.
If you instead come up through that, God, go away, thread. That locks it in place.
Cool. That is something I'm gonna adopt.
They stay put. So that's my secret trick to blanket stitching. Yeah. So that's basically it. It's a lot of hand sewing if you're hand sewing. Oh, I know. I wanted to talk about machine sewing it down. So I'm going to bring in one of these knees and try to get close.
Yeah, I can totally see the stitches.
Okay, so when you're zigzagging, so I do a, where is that big fat needle? I want that back. So I do a really tight, like buttonhole zigzag when I do, because it's fighting pants, and it's gonna, or even if it's not, even if it's like play clothes that you're doing this, or like a camp dress, like a Code RD, you want to really secure it, and it also makes a nice kind of satin edge, right? And so when you do this, you want to make sure that your machine needle comes down right at the edge of your fabric, right at the edge of your applique, so that this is the actual edge of your design, and this comes inside your design. And as you sew, like if I'm coming around this curve, I'm going to stop with the needle in the fabric. I'm going to move my fat hand so you can see. I'm going to stop with the needle in the fabric, and then I'm going to turn my project so that it can continue. Yeah, I'm not used to doing this. I'm sorry, guys. So, stop, turn the fabric so that you can change the direction of the sewing and keep, you know, and do like 3 stitches and then turn it a little bit more. And that's how you get that smooth coverage around curves. Same thing on the inside. You always want to put your needle down on the outside of a curve. So like this inside curve here, I'm going to keep my needle down here and turn the fabric. If you don't do that and you change direction and your needle's down here, you're going to make a gap in your sewing out here. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. And then I go to the join and I sew to where this edge is going to be, and then I start and I cover the end of the other one. And this is not like a super speed racer process. This is a slow, you know, it's machine sewing, but it's still slow because you want it to be neat. And when it's a really intricate design like this, you have to cover it carefully. And when it's like this is through 3 layers of duck cotton, which machines don't like very much. And the coat, which I don't even know where I put it. These fish up the back, every time I went over one of these joins in the checky, it would just completely freak out. So, you know, you just have to go slow and kind of sweet talk your way.
I'll tell you, when you don't go slow, you don't, your design can disappear under sort of messy zigzag. So
yeah,
going slow is really, really, really important. And also, I don't know if you're going to cover this, but changing your needle before you start is also super important.
And keep like I always, these pants and coat, I ended up using an old batch of either Heat and Bond or Wonder Under. I'm going to stop this camera. And it was super sticky. And so I do like maybe 10 stitches, and then I have to like take a little olive oil and rub the sticky stuff off and then do 10 more stitches. So it was a horrible pain in the ass. So maybe test your Wonder Under before you get knee deep into your project. And I also broke a lot of needles. So that was a several pack of needles project.
I was going to say, on when you machine sew applique, use the lightest Wonder Under possible, because when it gums up your needle and you don't take the time to take the olive oil out, it'll break your thread, and it takes you even longer. So yeah,
it's a nightmare, and it's why a lot of people don't use Wonder Under, because I think they've tried the heavy duty stuff instead of the lighter stuff, and it's no good. It takes a lot of patience. So I've got some designs that I cut out, I don't know, like 20 years ago, that I found. Like it's a whole project with a coat and everything that I'm about to put together, and we'll see how well that Wonder Under works. I don't know.
But that's going to be hand sewn, right? Not machine sewn.
That's going to be hand sewn. Yeah. Yes, that'll be hand sewn. Because I enjoy that process. And I want to emphasize this is my process, and it doesn't mean that you have to do it my way. I fully encourage if somebody has better technology to use that. I mean, my light table is a good example. I use janky old shit until it doesn't work anymore and I'm forced to use a new tool. So, you know, use your Cricut, figure that out, teach everybody else how to do that. I think a lot of us just don't have time to do everything by hand, and Applique is a really cool way to bling your stuff out. And machine sewn applique is just as legit as hand sewn stuff. And if that's what you love, then do that.
Can we talk about how when you're stitching down on wool, you don't actually have to go through all of the wool, like, or do you go all the way through? It take like twice as long if you know what I mean?
Yeah, you can catch, it depends on how thick the wool is. You can catch just part of the wool.
Or do you always go all the way through?
Well, I'm thinking about it. I think that I do because I use my finger, I use the needle hitting my finger as knowing that I've gone through, and I use that to kind of locate where my needle tip is. And so, yeah, I think I do go all the way through, but you don't have to. You know, you can experiment with that and see what works for you, and see, you know, what is what's easy and what's the word I'm looking for? What comes naturally. You know, there are certain ways of doing things that I do because it's just the way my body wants to do them, and has from the start. And I think that, yeah, so I go in, I guess I can turn my camera back on. So I go in until I can feel that needle point in my skin. Oh, you can't see that. And now I'm stabbing myself. And then I know to turn it and come back up.
So is there a reason you come up through the applique? Because I think I do it the other way. I think I always go down because when I try to come up through the applique, especially if my needle isn't sharp, it'll like push it. So I'm very interested in the fact that you come up through the applique, because that's just something that I have eliminated.
It's just the way that I do it. I think that it helps me keep my stitch length from the edge to here even, and it helps me keep the lengths between the stitches even. Oh, I wanted to show that trick. Let me see if I can find a pen that'll work. So there's a trick as you're first starting out to keep your stitches even, where you now you get to see how many dead pens I have. Here, I'll use a Sharpie. All right, so where you can just mark.
Okay, I can't see your thumb. Pull it back a little bit. There you go.
Where you just mark, and you can use a ruler to do that so that you get it correct. So you mark your thumb, and then as you're sewing,
pull back again. There you go.
This is so weird. It's like doing something in a mirror. You can line those stitches up, and you can use it as your guide to where you need to come up. Oh, I guess I could talk about corners. So you can see I've come to this corner, and I am going to come up almost exactly where that previous stitch was. And then turn the corner and come up Normally it's all three. I didn't load that quite right. Sorry, I just lost my thread out of my needle. But you should, when you have this corner, it should be three that all go into the one, and that helps keep that nice and square. If that makes sense. Should I do another corner, or is that good?
I think that's good.
Okay. I feel like that went really fast.
I think it was kind of fast, but do you have any sort of tricks when you're using kind of like wool that's really dense? Like sometimes from Pendleton, you'll get like really dense sort of rug wool, and you get a couple layers of that, and it's super hard to get through. Do you have any tricks for that?
I don't use it.
Okay. There you go.
And I mean, that's kind of the cheeky answer, but when I did Driffa's Laurel elevation coat, the wool that she gave me was super fold, super hard wool, and I had to use pliers every time I put the needle through the wool, and there was no halfway going through the wool with that. You had to go all the way through. So it was go down, pull the needle, pull the pliers, pull the needle with the pliers, go up. Took forever. So after that, I vowed I would never work with that kind of wool again.
What would you suggest? What kind of wool?
That's a hard question for me to answer because it's been so long since I've been in a fabric store because I have such a big stash that I've been working from. We live next to mill ends, and mill ends used to sell coating wool by the pound. And so I just have, actually I'm starting to run out, but I have sort of an obscene stash of coating wool, and it's heavy, but it's still, the weave, it's heavy enough to not to fray, but the weave is tight, is loose enough that you can get a needle through it. Did I say that right?
Yes.
This wool that this coat is made from, I turn my camera on again, is a hand woven that Laurelyn gave me years and years ago. And it's a super light, like summer weave, linen weave wool. I like to use a twill. Like that's a broken twill, but I like a wool that's a twill because it's more, it tends to fray less. Nope, this is a coating wool, and then another coating wool, all by the pound, the by the pound wool, which they don't have anymore. So that sort of is my excuse for not knowing what the name of the different kinds of wool is, because I would just go in and buy it by the pound and trial and error it. And I honestly, I haven't really bought wool in probably 10 years. So, so yeah.
Can you talk about your choices? Like sometimes you'll blanket in a different color for contrast, and sometimes you have the whip stitch in the same color, and then you go around to sort of set it off. Is there a stitch that you use in particular to, like, do you couch around, or do you or can you do anything?
Any of the above. The booties that I'm working on, which is this piece.
Mm-hmm.
The extant piece has, come on camera.
There you go.
The extant piece has the stems. It's the whip stitch, and then it's got a stem stitch around it. And then it's decorated. I'm trying, people, I'm sorry. Then it's decorated with a chain stitch. So that's me doing as close to the period, to the extant piece as possible. I like doing couching because you can whip stitch and add that edging at the same time. And I think that that's also period appropriate for my time period. But I would, if that's what you're looking for, if you're stepping away from it just being an artistic expression and you want it to be a duplication of a period piece, do your research and check out what's being used in the piece that you want to replicate and do that. But mostly it's like the tunic for Mark, where you can't really see the stitches on the camera. One of the things that I have in my head every time I'm sewing is my master, Duchess Ludwika. She gets this tone in her voice and she's like, those stitches are huge. And so I have that in my head all the time when I'm sewing. And so that was a kind of a fuck you to her. Like, I'm going to make the smallest damn stitches that you're not even going to be able to see. It was a spite project, right? And I don't think I could do that project now because my eyes aren't good enough. Like, I can barely see those stitches with my glasses on. So that was just madness on my part. Couching I'll use if the wool ends up being more fray-y than I expected. Let me grab another coat.
While you're grabbing the coat, can you give us the name of your generic bedazzler again?
I'll grab the box.
All right.
It is As Seen on TV.
The Gem Magic?
Gem Magic.
Gem Magic. All right.
Yeah.
Cool.
And it has a bonus portable mini magic in it.
Ooh.
That doesn't work. So yeah, I actually used that. And I used all of the super shiny pieces that come with it on the butt of Mark's old fighting pants to spell out his name.
Nice.
Because you gotta have fun, right?
Right. Fun
So couching. This was the project that I taught myself couching with. And this is a really thick coating wool base. And then this is a looser wool twill that I used for the applique. And I used, you can see that this motif is the is that correct? Yeah, that's the inside here that I cut out. So
what is that? I don't think I've ever seen you wear that.
You have, there's pictures of me, of us standing together at La Providura.
Oh, cool.
It's this coat. It got packed with a pen. And so the whole front of the coat has, can you see that? It's like pen stains on it.
That's a bummer.
But it's got both those and these are ultra suede pieces that are just whip stitched down. I'm sorry, words are not coming to me very well today. I did not get much sleep.
You can see how clean the ultra suede looks, and it's expensive if you don't have access to grandma's old skirts. It can be super expensive.
It is expensive, but you can buy it like in a quarter yard. You know, you can buy it in like 4-inch or 3-inch strips. And so that makes it a little more affordable. You just figure out how wide the ultra suede is and measure your project and figure out how much you are going to use. Mill ends for a while also, and I haven't been in the store for, I don't know, 6 years. But they also sell squares of ultra suede that I had a little stash of for a while as well to do work on gift pouches for royalty. So
does anyone else have questions?
That is a Oh my God, why can't I remember the stitch name? That's that same stitch on wool on wool, so that you can see what it looks like in wool. The running stitch. God. And again, it's red on red fabric, so it kind of disappears. And I like sometimes having it, you know, disappear into the fabric and not be a part of a decorative element. But then sometimes I like it to be decorative. So I had a big debate in my head with Mark's fighting stuff, whether or not to sew it down with a black outline, which I ended up not doing. But you know, it can be a huge element in the design of your piece. So if that's something that you want,
When you say that, were you going to machine sew it down with black, or were you going to go
Yeah.
over it? Okay.
No, I was going to do all of the zigzag with black so that it, I don't know, it outlined the designs better, but I kind of like the way that the yellow and the red play. That blue and that turquoise and red coat that I just showed you, from a distance, the turquoise and red are such opposite colors that they kind of move when you look at the designs, and the white that's couched on the other pieces takes that element out of the design. And I kind of like that it's like, it hurts your eyes to look at it, and it's almost an optical illusion because the colors are so opposite that they do that. So I think that the colors are a really fun thing to play with that way.
And you do use high contrast colors. Do you recommend that, or is it really just whatever your aesthetic is?
I think it's whatever makes you happy.
Okay.
You know, the time period that I do is kind of loud and obnoxious. And even though I wear black, like all black all the time in real life, in my SCA clothes, I really like the color. I really like that they wore their wealth on their bodies, and so that ostentatious design and the all of the hand stitching and all of the colors, all kinds of kind of adds to that that feeling of wealth. You know, that you had you or somebody that does work for you, probably a slave, it's probably an enslaved person. You know, it's a wealth thing. So, but it's me. I do all the work.
Very cool.
I don't know. Does anybody have any questions? Is there anything I didn't cover?
I think you covered most of it. I just kind of want to give people sort of it takes a while to get your stitches nice. You know, you can see in the background how much practice Achaxe has had, and that's not everything. I mean, she's costumed for royals for years, decades.
Yeah.
So
it's 26 years of doing this, and I worked for Kalja and Dame Megan for 2 years making garb for other people, and so that's where I did a lot of applique code RDs and things like that. So it's thousands and thousands and thousands of hours, both hand and machine stitching, and you know, do practice pieces. You can just cut out an O and wonder under it down out of some scrap, and practice going around curves with your machine, practice meeting up your edges. I think that gift bags are a really good way to practice doing. That's one of the first things that I have when I'm teaching people. It's a really good way to get new people doing applique. You know, and you can do the designs for them and have them do the stitching, or whatever, you know, whatever their interest is in participating in that. It's, you know, it can be as small as, you know, the size of your hand, or it can be, you know, like notebook sized, but it's a nice non-intimidating scale of project to do. And I totally would suggest doing something like that before you go full, you know, dress edge or cotardie, heraldic cotardie or whatever.
Yeah, a banner
even,
is a good small project too.
Yeah, and these triangles around this sleeve are one of my first applique projects. And actually, I'm going to show you. And they are, I don't know, can you see?
Yeah.
Those stitches right here?
Not very well.
Okay. I did not use the, in that corner too, I did not use the lockdown method. And they're super janky. The stitching's all over the place. But I still wear this, and it's 21 years old. So, you know, it gets machine washed all the time.
So Duchess Cortland is asking what kind of thread you use to applique stuff down.
I guess you don't need to watch my hand, do you?
And if you can tell us what, if you have a size needle that you use or a kind of needle that you use, that would be great too.
It totally depends on what fabric I'm using and what thread I'm using as far as what size needle I use. Most of the time, I just use, you know, oh, that's off.
It's off.
I just use thread. Like, here, look, can't you see it? It's really cool. Let's turn it back on. Most of the time, I just use thread. You know, a cotton or again, you know, we are a 4-person family on a single budget, a single person's income. And so I think it's super awesome and exciting when people use silk to finish stuff. And I will do that occasionally, but I don't have the money to do that on everything. So most of my embroidery is just cotton embroidery floss. Or I have a lot of wool. When I worked for Colja and Celeste, they had some off dye lots. And again, Mill Ends used to have, I don't know if you can see these. Mill Ends used to have DMC, like tapestry wool for really cheap. And so I have a ton of this in a bunch of different colors because every time I would go in to buy fabric, I would get like a handful. And so the last few years have really been about me creating with the palette that I already have. I'm going to turn that off again. I'm using fabric that I have on hand. I'm using thread that I have on hand most of the time. I had to buy more for the fighting kit thing. And I'm using floss, embroidery floss, or wool floss that I have on hand. I found several of those plastic containers of embroidery floss, you know, where people wind it on cards at an estate sale. Some awesome craftswoman had passed away, and so I have a huge collection of cotton embroidery floss. So I probably never have to buy that ever again. It'll probably be sold at an estate sale or given to you at some point.
And when Duchess Asa decided that cotton embroidery floss was beneath her, I inherited her collection and I still have a lot of it. So
yeah, and you know, I think working with silk is awesome. I think I did my Laurel cuffs, which I will grab. I think I did those in silk.
I personally love the wool silk mix because it gives you a really nice shine and it's strong. Oh, cool.
That's silk on silk embroidery, and it's a cuff to a wool gauze tunic. And again, super crazy tiny stitches. But it doesn't, to my eye,
look that different.
it doesn't look that different. I really can't tell, I'll be honest. I can tell the way it feels. The silk is a little smoother and a little sexier feeling. But they really do have kind of the same sheen. And if you're on a budget, use cotton, you know, use what you have on hand. If you have money and you want to go luxury and that's your jam, then do that. You know, no judgment either way. So I don't know if that answered the question at all.
I think it did. There's two more questions. One is, do you also use Wonder Under when you're using wool felt, like on your booties?
I do. We're gonna turn the camera on again. Yep, these are booty pieces that I never cut the thing out of because so you can see the Wonder Under is still attached to them.
Yeah.
So yes, the answer to that is yes. And these are points that I was going to use on Gabe's hat, or no, not Gabe, Zipser's hat, but they were the wrong size. So now they're just extra in my bag of weird pieces.
And then somebody else wants to know what your favorite piece you've done with applique is, and what's your most ostentatious piece?
I think one of my favorite pieces is the Queen's cloak for the Kingdom of Antir that I worked on with Helga and Isrith, for a couple of reasons. Whenever, and now I'm going to get teary because apparently that's what I fucking do. Whenever I see that being used, you know, and I see the kingdom banners that I did in the background and the cushions for the thrones, which I don't think are in use anymore. I think they either got left at Pennsic or I don't know. Anyway, when I see pictures of those things being in use, it makes me feel relevant. It makes me feel like I left some kind of mark. You know, those years that I was home with kids most of the time or at an event in my tent and not seeing anyone, seeing those objects in use is really wonderful. And knowing that all of our queens have worn those cloaks, well, since they were made. And I also, the Champion's cloak is the same for me, even though it's cotton velvet, poorly zigzagged with metallic thread. Don't use metallic thread, people, it's horrible.
It's horrible.
And I want to replace it, but it's lasted 20 years. And it's like a relic now, and that's kind of a cool thing. So those are the things that bring me a lot of joy, and really anything that I've made somebody that they're wearing and that makes them feel beautiful. That brings me joy to see people using the crap out of what I've made. And that's probably why I don't do a lot of sewing for myself, because I don't get that rush of knowing that I brought pleasure to somebody through my work. So that's my answer to that.
What about ostentatious?
I think that the cloaks probably fit that bill as well. I don't know.
Kjartan's county or ducal was pretty ostentatious.
Kjartan's county was pretty cool. The Sport of Kings one was also, Kjartan's I did all the work myself, and so that I'm kind of proud of, although I think it's like hangs on his wall, he doesn't wear it. And you know, technically, I just have to say this, applique in Viking era stuff is not really appropriate. You can't document it. And some people get their panties all bunchied about it, but if it brings you joy, then do the thing. You know, there's SCA cool, and there's nothing wrong with SCA cool. If it brings you joy and it makes you feel pretty, and it's a piece of art that you have crafted with your heart, then there's nothing wrong with that. So I just have to say that.
And yeah. Anyway, I have a whole rant about applique in the Viking period, but this is not what the show is about. So I'm not going to go there. But if anybody ever wants to chat with me about it, yeah. Anyway, somebody
You
wants
can
to
wind
know.
her up and watch her go.
Yeah, you can wind me up. Because they appliqued with a whole bunch of other things. So yeah, but you know, somebody wants to know what the plaque thing is behind you, and that's applique you did with gilded leather, right?
Yeah. Oh, my camera's still on. So these are super old, and they've been through a lot. And I think I have a fresh one, but I'm not going to pull it out. You don't need to see that. So this is leather glued down to leather. I did not use Wonder Under for this. I used, I'm not even sure what kind of adhesive. It's been too long. But this was just like a kind of a gray natural colored leather that I used craft gold leaf. Like, I mean, literally just like went to the craft store and bought a gold leafing kit and leafed it and then glued it down to some red leather. And then it's on a background of fur. I don't know, Rifkin, if you remember when we were little, Mom had this black fur pillow. She said it was sealskin. So that's what this fur is. Again, it's upcycled and repurposed. And these are, they're direct copies of an extant plaque that was a gold leafed leather on a red leather background on over pony fur. And so that's what those are. And then this is, and this has never been washed. This is 20, I think this coat is older than my relationship with my husband. So, and that's, again, ultra suede applique that's just whip stitched down with a black. And actually, this is one of the first appliques I did. And you can see where I burned it, ironing it down. Now I have to find the spot. I think it was in. So right along here, you can see where I burned the shit out of it, ironing it down. So don't, you know, keep your iron as cool as you can. And most of that has kind of scraped off. That's one of the other really cool things about ultra suede is that if you burn it, you can kind of buff it out. Because this whole piece was burnt and you can just kind of see it in spots now. So.
And you're probably the only one that notices it.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So I just wanted to add one thing about Wonder Under is that sometimes if you've never used it before, like this is just something to watch out for. Sometimes the glue wants to pull away from your fabric and stay with the tracing paper when you're trying to undo it. So what you can do is go to a different corner that isn't doing that and sort of rub it, and the paper will come up and the glue will stay to the fabric, and you take it up from there. And even the part of the applique that was where the glue was coming up is salvageable. It'll stay there, and when you iron it down, the glue will adhere back to the fabric.
Yeah, or you can, if you keep the paper on, if it's not lifting off, if you keep the paper on, I'm gonna show an example of that.
Yeah, because
so this is what it looks like when you take it off. You've got this shiny adhesive still. And then every once in a while, I'm just gonna, there we go. Nope. All right, well, it's not gonna do it for me.
I find it does it with thicker fabric.
Well,
Yeah,
you don't get
yeah,
thicker
that's
than
very thick.
that. Yeah, and it probably is just like, here we go.
Yeah,
This is
right.
coming up.
Yeah.
You can see that the shiny stuff didn't stay, it came up. But if I go to another corner, nope. So this one is just going to have to be re-ironed. Oh, nope, there, I got it.
Yeah. So yeah, you can tell that's old.
Yeah, and so if you put it down, make sure that the like, you don't want to do this. You don't want to have your sticky part like fold over and hang off. And I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah, I can.
You know, then that's how you get glue all over your iron and all over your inappropriate parts of your piece. You want to just make sure that you have that all in its place before you hit it with the iron.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So I made you talk for almost another half an hour.
That's excellent. I'm glad to answer questions. I was super nervous and I think I went through things really fast. So
I think I don't think there's any more questions. If I missed your question, Achaxe will probably go through the comments later and answer anything that I missed.
I will. I'll do it right now.
And then if you all scroll up, I did put the link to her applique handout in the comments. It's like the first comment up there. And you guys can just click on that and find it.
And you can message the sisters interview page if you you know, have a project specific advice that you want. I will try to answer and try to get to it. I am going to be taking July off. So, and the next 11 days, I think we have 11 Zoom events.
I think people are sick of seeing our faces anyway. So
yeah, I definitely feel like we have oversaturated everyone with ourselves.
So thanks everyone for joining us. Again, I would personally love to see your applique projects. So if you do some, post them up on our page. I loved seeing everybody's shields that they did and they posted. It makes us feel like we're actually reaching people and that you know, we're doing something that is helpful. So and I love to watch people's art. I just love to look at it. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I love seeing how people interpret different things. One of the things that I tell people, even if you know, Joe Bob and I are reproducing the same extant piece, art is filtered through who you are. It's filtered through your soul, and you're going to put a slightly different spin on it than I do. And I think that the most, and I'm getting teary again, I think the most beautiful thing about seeing other people's work is seeing their personalities and their souls shine through it. And that makes me really happy. It brings me a lot of joy. So please do post your stuff. We have 3 interviews coming up this week. Tomorrow, Duchess Dagmar and I are interviewing Viscountess Una of the West, who is just an awesome, awesome woman. Tuesday, I am interviewing on Branch of Laurels. I'm reading her name and not hearing it pronounced has ruined me. Yeah, I can't.
I don't know who it is, so I can't help.
It's Heloys.
Eloise.
Thank you. And I want to say Heloy, and I keep saying that. And
Eloise, yeah.
So I'm really sorry. I totally suck. And then Wednesday we are interviewing Genevieve, who is one of the movers and shakers in DEI in our kingdom and in the known world. And she is going to be hosting a show called Voices of Color. that will be run by and interviewing people of color that are in the SCA and talking about their experiences. So this is going to be kind of to launch that, and we're super excited to be able to support her with that. And then next weekend, both Rifkin and I have projects in on Tier's Athenaeum. And I think I already shared that link to the sisters page. So you can.
Yeah. And then next week, I'm going to do leveling up a little bit earlier in the day. We're going to have Duke Tiernan of On Tier on, and he's going to talk about how to make your kit profile look right for whatever time period, culture, whatever that you're trying to achieve. He's very, very good at that. And then after we talk to Tiernan, Dawn and I will be doing the Lion's Den, and we will be talking about embellishments on clothes and other things. So probably a lot more of this. So
yeah, but it'll be with a panel. My Master Duchess Ludwiga, Duchess Kiva, Duchess Karin, a lot of I don't really know who else.
I think Countess Ariana is going to be on it too.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
So just a lot of really talented artists talking about how they embellish stuff, and I think we're going to talk about doing budget embellishments and things that don't take a lot of time but give a lot of bling bang.
Lots of wow factor.
Yeah, lots of wow factor. So that's going to be super fun. And then we finish the week out? No. Well, next month, then there'll be another Grace Under Pressure, and then my last branch of laurels will be with Her Majesty on Tier.
Excellent.
And then the last sisters interview before we go on a break. It's not going to be the last sisters interview forever. Will be with Sir Kelwin.
Sir Kelwin. Yep.
Yeah. Which will be
very
super
cool.
awesome.
All right.
Thank you, everybody.
We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Bye.